She drunkenly called a stock market billionaire a bad boy. He pulled her in and whispered, "You have no idea." The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow across the marble floors of the Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom. Lily tugged at the hem of her borrowed black cocktail dress, feeling like an imposter among the sea of designer outfits and perfectly coiffed hair. Next to her, Kate squeezed her arm reassuringly. "Stop fidgeting," Kate whispered. "You look amazing. Nobody can tell the dress is from my closet." Lily took a deep breath, inhaling the mixed scents of expensive perfumes and fresh flower arrangements. I know. It's just, look at this place. The champagne glasses probably cost more than my monthly rent." They made their way through the crowd, carefully navigating between clusters of people engaged in animated conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes. A waiter glided past with a tray of champagne flutes, and Kate smoothly snagged two. "Here," she said, handing one to Lily. "Liquid courage. Besides, we're supposed to be having fun, remember? It's not every day we get invited to a charity gala." Lily took a grateful sip, letting the bubbles dance on her tongue. "Thanks for bringing me as your +1. The magazine must really value your PR skills if they're sending you to cover events like this." "Of course I brought you. Who else would keep me sane around all these trust fund babies?" Kate's eyes sparkled with mischief as she surveyed the room. "Speaking of which, isn't that Max Sterling over there?" Lily followed her friend's gaze to a group of men in expensive suits. At the center stood Max Sterling, looking every bit the young billionaire that business magazines couldn't stop writing about. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his tailored suit probably cost more than Lily's entire wardrobe. "God, he looks even more arrogant in person," Lily muttered, taking another sip of champagne. As the evening wore on, Lily found herself growing more relaxed. Perhaps too relaxed, thanks to the steady stream of champagne. She and Kate had separated briefly, with Kate networking with potential magazine contacts, while Lily observed the crowd from near one of the elaborate flower arrangements. That's when she overheard Max Sterling's voice, deep and confident, discussing his latest investment strategy with another guest. "The market's ready for disruption. Sometimes you have to take big risks to see big rewards." The champagne buzzing through her system gave Lily an unusual burst of courage. Without thinking, she turned around and called out, "Oh, please, you're just another bad boy billionaire playing with other people's money." The conversation around them came to an abrupt halt. Max Sterling turned slowly, his eyebrows raised in surprise. Instead of the anger she expected to see on his face, there was something else: amusement, curiosity, and something she couldn't quite read. He excused himself from his previous conversation and took a step toward her. The movement was smooth, almost predatory, and Lily suddenly felt very aware of how much taller he was up close. His cologne, subtle but expensive, reached her before he did. Other guests nearby watched with barely concealed interest as Max studied her face, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The silence stretched between them, charged with an unexpected tension that made Lily's heart race. "Bad boy billionaire?" he repeated, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "That's an interesting assessment from someone who doesn't know me at all." Lily felt her cheeks flush, but whether from the champagne or his intense gaze, she wasn't sure. The way he looked at her made her feel like they were the only two people in the crowded ballroom, and for a moment, she forgot about all the eyes watching their exchange with keen interest. "I have to say," Max said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement, "that's the most honest thing anyone said to me all evening." He extended his hand. "Max Sterling. Though I suppose you already knew that." Lily stared at his outstretched hand for a moment before taking it. His grip was firm but gentle, his palm warm against hers. "Lily Chen. And I'm sorry about that outburst. The champagne might have loosened my tongue a bit." Don't apologize. It's refreshing to meet someone who speaks their mind. His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, making him look younger, more approachable. Even if their opinion of me is less than flattering. A waiter passed by with fresh glasses of champagne. Max smoothly grabbed two, offering one to Lily. She hesitated before accepting it, aware that she should probably slow down, but not wanting to appear rude. So, Lily Chen, what brings you to this particular gathering of, what did you call us? Bad boys playing with other people's money? She winced. I'm here with my friend Kate. She's covering the event for her magazine. Lily gestured vaguely toward the crowd where Kate had disappeared. I'm just the +1. And what do you do when you're not calling out billionaires at charity events? I'm a freelance writer. She took a sip of champagne, finding it easier to talk to him than she'd expected. Mostly content marketing, some journalism pieces when I can get them. Max's eyebrows rose with genuine interest. A writer? That explains the sharp tongue. He leaned against one of the ornate pillars, his posture relaxed but somehow still commanding. What kind of stories interest you? The real ones, Lily replied without hesitation. Stories about people making actual differences in the world, not just throwing money at problems for tax write-offs. She immediately bit her lip, realizing she might have just insulted him again at his own charity event. But Max laughed, a rich, genuine sound that drew curious glances from nearby guests. You really don't hold back, do you? I like that. He studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Though I think you might be surprised to learn that some of us actually do care about making real change. Lily found herself drawn into a conversation that flowed easier than she'd anticipated. Max asked about her writing, sharing surprising insights about the publishing industry and digital media landscape. He listened attentively when she talked about the challenges of freelancing, offering perspectives she hadn't considered. As they talked, Lily noticed small details about him that didn't fit with his public image. The way he absently adjusted his cufflinks when discussing serious topics, the genuine interest in his eyes when she spoke about her passion projects, the slight softening of his voice when mentioning his company's community initiatives. You know, Max said after they'd been talking for what felt like both minutes and hours, I have a feeling there's a lot more to discuss here. He set his empty glass on a passing waiter's tray. Would you be interested in continuing this conversation over dinner? Tomorrow night? Lily blinked, caught off guard by the invitation. The sensible part of her brain reminded her that this was Max Sterling, billionaire, risk-taker, subject of countless tabloid headlines. The same man she'd just publicly called out for being reckless. But there was something in the way he looked at her, an earnestness beneath the confident exterior that made her curious. He wasn't at all what she'd expected, and that intrigued her more than she wanted to admit. She started, watching his expression carefully. Are you sure you want to risk another round of brutal honesty? I'm counting on it, he replied, a mixture of challenge and charm in his smile. What do you say? Lily found herself nodding before she'd fully processed the decision. Okay, dinner. Lily stood outside LeBlanc, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her purse. The restaurant's elegant facade loomed before her, all polished glass and warm lighting. Through the windows, she could see crystal chandeliers casting a golden glow over white-clothed tables. Ms. Chen? A uniformed valet approached her. Mr. Sterling is already inside. Please, follow me. The interior was even more impressive up close. The soft murmur of conversation mixed with the gentle tinkling of silverware against fine china. Lily followed the valet past tables of people who looked like they discussed million-dollar deals over breakfast. Max stood when she approached their table, tucked away in a quiet corner with a view of the city skyline. Lily, he smiled, pulling out her chair. I'm glad you came. I almost didn't, she admitted, settling into the plush seat. This is a lot different from my usual takeout spots. Too much? He looked concerned. We could go somewhere else. No, it's fine. Lily smoothed her napkin across her lap. Just taking it all in. A sommelier appeared with a wine list, but Max waved it away. The usual, Philippe, and whatever Ms. Chen would prefer. Just water for me, Lily said quickly. I think I've learned my lesson about alcohol around you. Max's laugh was warm and genuine. Probably wise, though I did enjoy your candor last night. The conversation flowed easier than Lily expected as they worked through their appetizers. Max told her about growing up in Boston, surprising her with stories about summer jobs at his father's company, starting in the mailroom. Wait, Lily set down her fork. You actually worked? I thought. That I was born with a silver spoon and never had to lift a finger? His eyes twinkled. My father believed in earning your way. Every summer, different position, starting from the bottom. Best education I could have asked for. My dad was a mechanic, Lily found herself sharing. He taught me how to change a tire before I learned to drive. Said no daughter of his was going to be stranded on the roadside waiting for help. Smart man? Max leaned forward, interested. What does he think about your writing career? Lily's voice softened. He passed away 2 years ago, but he always supported my dreams, even when they didn't make practical sense. Max's expression shifted to one of genuine sympathy. I'm sorry, Lily. That must have been hard. The main course arrived, dishes whose names Lily could barely pronounce, but whose flavors were extraordinary. As they ate, Max asked about her writing, showing surprising knowledge about the publishing industry's challenges. So what made you choose finance? Lily asked. With your background, you could have done anything. Max set down his fork, his expression turning serious. I saw an opportunity to make real change. The financial system, it's broken, Lily. It works for the wealthy while keeping others trapped in cycles of debt and housing insecurity. His passion was evident as he continued. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you tonight. My company's been developing something, a technology that could revolutionize affordable housing. Lily's journalistic instincts perked up. What kind of technology? An AI-driven platform that identifies underutilized properties and matches them with community housing initiatives, combined with innovative financing models that bypass traditional lending barriers. His eyes lit up as he explained the technical details. We're close to launch. This could help thousands of families access stable housing who've been shut out of the market. Lily sat back, processing this information. This wasn't the vanity project she'd expected. The complexity and potential impact of what Max described was impressive. That's not what I expected, she admitted. When you said tech startup, I thought, another app for the privileged? Max smiled knowingly. I get that a lot. But there's more to success than just accumulating wealth, don't you think? Looking at him now, Lily saw something different from the bad boy billionaire she'd confronted last night. There was depth here, and purpose, and maybe something worth exploring further. I'd like to hear more, she said softly. About the project, I mean. Have dinner with me again tomorrow? Max asked. There's a lot more to discuss. Lily found herself nodding, realizing she was genuinely looking forward to it. Tomorrow, then. Lily's fingers hovered over her laptop keyboard, her morning coffee growing cold beside her. The events of last night's dinner kept replaying in her mind. Max's passionate explanation of his housing initiative, the way his eyes lit up when discussing social impact, how different he seemed from his public image. She pulled up his company's website, expecting flashy graphics and corporate buzzwords. Instead, she found a clean, professional layout with clear mission statements about accessibility and social responsibility. Their tagline caught her attention. Innovation for everyone, not just the few. Huh, she muttered, scrolling through project descriptions and press releases. The more she read, the more her preconceptions about Max began to shift. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kate. "So? How was dinner with Mr. Bad Boy?" Lily smiled, typing back. "Not what I expected. Actually working on something meaningful." "Sure he is. All billionaires say that." Lily frowned at her friend's skepticism. It mirrored her own initial reactions, but after last night, she opened another tab and began diving deeper into Max's background. Articles from business journals painted a picture of a prodigy who'd made waves in the finance world not just for his success, but for his unconventional approaches. He'd faced criticism for advocating stricter regulations on predatory lending practices, positions that had put him at odds with many of his wealthy peers. One interview from 6 months ago caught her attention. The interviewer had asked why he didn't just enjoy his wealth instead of stirring up trouble. Max's response made her pause. "Wealth without purpose is meaningless. I've seen too many people struggle with basic needs while others accumulate more than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. That's not success. It's failure of our entire system." Lily leaned back in her chair, thinking about her own family's struggles. Her father's medical bills had eaten through their savings before he passed. Even now, she was juggling freelance work to keep up with her student loans. She found herself on a tech blog that had covered the early development of Max's housing platform. The technical details were complex, but the potential impact was clear. It could help families like hers avoid the financial traps that had caught so many. Her phone rang, making her jump. Max's name appeared on the screen. "Hello?" she answered, trying to sound casual. "Lily?" His voice was warm but professional. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything?" "Just doing some research, actually." She paused. "About your company." "Oh?" She could hear his smile. "And what's the verdict so far?" "I'm impressed," she admitted, "though I still have questions." "Perfect timing, then. I was hoping you might come by the office today. There's something I'd like to show you about the project, if you're interested." Lily glanced at her laptop, where multiple tabs displayed articles about Max's work. Her journalistic instincts were definitely piqued. But there was something else, too. A genuine curiosity about the man behind these initiatives. "What time?" she asked. "Would 2 o'clock work? I'll send a car." "I can take the subway," she interrupted, not ready to fully embrace his world of luxury. "Fair enough," he chuckled. "I'll text you the address. Wear something comfortable. We might be there a while if you have as many questions as I think you do." After hanging up, Lily stared at her research notes. The man she'd dismissively labeled a bad boy at the charity event was proving to be far more complex. His wealth wasn't just for show. He was actually trying to use it to create meaningful change. She closed her laptop, deciding to approach this meeting with an open mind. Whether Max's intentions were genuine or not, his project could make a real difference for people like her family. That alone was worth investigating further. Heading to her closet to find something appropriate for a tech company visit, Lily realized she was genuinely looking forward to learning more, both about the project and about Max himself. The gleaming glass tower that housed Max's company stood in stark contrast to Lily's modest apartment building. She smoothed her blazer, feeling slightly underdressed despite choosing her most professional outfit. The security guard directed her to the executive floor with a respectful nod. Walking through the open-plan office, Lily noticed something different from other corporate spaces she'd visited. Instead of sterile cubicles, the environment buzzed with energy. Whiteboards covered in complex diagrams lined the walls, and small groups of people huddled around computer screens, engaged in animated discussions. Lily! Max's voice carried across the room. He wore a simple white button-down with rolled-up sleeves, looking more like a passionate startup founder than a billionaire investor. Thanks for coming. Let me introduce you to the team. He led her to a conference room where 3 people were reviewing presentations. This is Sarah, our head of development. He gestured to a woman with thick-rimmed glasses who gave a warm smile. And these are Tom and Rachel, our lead engineers. We've heard a lot about you, Sarah said, making Lily wonder exactly what Max had shared about their encounters. Max pulled up a holographic display, and suddenly the room was filled with 3D models of housing complexes. This is what we've been working on, he explained, manipulating the image with practiced ease. A complete redesign of how affordable housing is built and financed. Lily watched as the model rotated, showing sustainable features and community spaces. The problem isn't just building costs, Max continued. It's the entire system. Predatory lending, artificial scarcity, corrupt zoning laws. We're creating a platform that bypasses traditional financing methods. Sarah jumped in. The technology allows us to eliminate multiple middlemen, reducing costs by nearly 60%. But more importantly, she pulled up another display showing financial projections. It makes home ownership accessible to families who've been systematically excluded. Lily thought about her parents' struggle to keep their house after her father's medical bills started piling up. How does it work? She asked, leaning forward. For the next hour, the team walked her through their platform. It wasn't just about building cheaper houses. It was a complete reimagining of home financing, using blockchain technology and smart contracts to create transparent, fair lending practices. The traditional banks hate us, Tom mentioned with a hint of pride. We're threatening their entire model. After the presentation, Max asked Lily to join him in his office. Unlike the stereotypical executive suite, it was modest and functional, with more whiteboards and technical documents than status symbols. So, he said, settling into a chair across from her. What do you think? Lily took a moment to gather her thoughts. It's incredible. But why isn't this all over the news? This could help so many people. Max's expression darkened slightly. That's where things get complicated. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Every time we get close to launch, something happens. Investors pull out mysteriously. Regulations suddenly change. The system doesn't want to change, Lily. She noticed the tension in his shoulders, the weight of frustration in his voice. The bad boy reputation, she began. Came from fighting back, he finished. I've made enemies by refusing to play by their rules. But seeing families like... He hesitated, then turned to face her. Like yours, struggling because of a rigged system, I can't just sit back and watch. His words hit home. Lily remembered the nights she'd spent helping her mother sort through bills, the shame in her father's eyes when they had to ask relatives for help. How did you know about my family? I did my research too, he admitted. Your articles about economic inequality, your father's medical bankruptcy, they're exactly why we're doing this. The system isn't broken, Lily. It's working exactly as designed, keeping people trapped in cycles of debt and poverty. The passionate intensity in his eyes caught her off guard. This wasn't the arrogant billionaire she'd assumed him to be at the charity event. This was someone fighting against the very system that had made him wealthy, risking everything to make a difference. Tell me more, she said softly, understanding now that there was far more to Max's story than she'd imagined. Lily's tiny apartment felt different when she returned home that evening. The cramped space with its second-hand furniture and water-stained ceiling had always been her refuge, but now it felt like a physical reminder of everything Max was fighting against. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her worn couch, mind racing with images from the day, the innovative office space, the passionate team, and most of all, Max's unexpected sincerity. The Max she'd met today was worlds apart from the bad boy billionaire she'd drunkenly confronted at the charity event. Reaching for her laptop, Lily opened a new document and began typing, trying to sort through her thoughts. She'd always prided herself on being a good judge of character, on seeing through the facades people put up. But had her own biases about wealth blinded her? God, I was such a jerk, she muttered, remembering her snarky comment at the charity event. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mom asking about her day. Lily stared at it, thinking about all the times she'd watched her parents struggle, the endless medical bills, the refinanced mortgage, the second jobs they'd taken on. She'd grown up believing that wealthy people were part of the problem, that they hoarded their riches while families like hers suffered. But Max? Max was different. He wasn't just throwing money at problems through charitable donations. He was actively working to change the system itself. Getting up, Lily walked to her tiny kitchen and made herself some tea, her mother's cure-all for confusion. The whistle of the kettle pierced the quiet apartment as her mind wandered back to the holographic displays she'd seen earlier. The housing models hadn't just been about making cheaper homes. They represented real hope for families like hers. She thought about Max's face when he'd talked about fighting the system. There had been frustration there, yes, but also determination. Vulnerability. The kind of raw honesty that couldn't be faked. Settling back on the couch with her tea, Lily pulled out her phone and started researching Max's previous projects. Articles popped up about his controversial investments, his public challenges to traditional banking systems, his heated exchanges with other business leaders. But reading them now, with context, she saw a pattern she'd missed before. Every move, every reckless decision, had been aimed at disrupting systems that kept wealth concentrated in the hands of a few. Her phone rang, startling her from her research. Max's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," she answered, trying to sound casual despite her racing heart. "Lily!" His voice was warm, but held an edge of excitement. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "No, just doing some reading, actually. About you, if I'm being honest." He chuckled. "Finding all the reasons to reinforce your bad boy theory?" "Actually, I'm starting to think I might have been wrong about that." "Don't tell me I'm losing my edge," he teased. Then his tone grew more serious. "Listen, we're having an event next week, a preview of the housing platform for potential investors and community leaders. I'd like you to be there." Lily sat up straighter. "Me? Why?" "Because you're exactly the kind of person we're building this for. Someone who understands both the problem and the importance of fixing it. Plus," he paused, "I'd really like to have someone there who sees past the headlines." Her thumb traced the chip in her tea mug, a reminder of her own financial reality. "I'd like that," she found herself saying, "to see more of what you're working on." "Great." The smile was evident in his voice. "I'll send you the details. And Lily, thank you for giving me a chance to prove you wrong about me." After they hung up, Lily sat in her quiet apartment, looking around at her modest surroundings with new eyes. Maybe she had been wrong about Max. Maybe there was more to his story, and to him, than she'd allowed herself to see. The company event was held in a renovated warehouse, its industrial charm softened by warm lighting and modern touches. Lily stood among investors and community leaders, feeling slightly out of place in her simple black dress. The space buzzed with anticipation as Max took the stage. He looked different tonight. Gone was the casual confidence she'd first encountered. Instead, he carried himself with quiet intensity, his usual smirk replaced by determined focus. The room fell silent as he approached the podium. "We live in a world of stark contrasts," Max began, his voice carrying across the warehouse. While some of us worry about which vacation home to visit next, others lie awake at night, wondering if they'll be able to keep a roof over their children's heads. His eyes found Lily's in the crowd. This isn't just about business, it's about basic human dignity. The holographic display behind him came to life, showing 3D models of innovative housing solutions. Max walked through the technology with practiced ease, but it was the passion in his voice that held everyone's attention. Our AI-driven construction methods will cut costs by 60%. Our financing platform will bypass traditional lending barriers. He paused, letting that sink in. But numbers don't tell the whole story. This is about families, about giving people a fair chance at stability. Lily watched as Max's usual polished exterior gave way to raw emotion. He shared stories of people he'd met, a single mother working 3 jobs, an elderly couple forced out of their neighborhood by rising rents, a young family crushed by medical debt. The system isn't broken, Max's voice hardened. It's working exactly as designed, to keep wealth and power concentrated in the hands of a few. Well, I'm done playing by their rules. The presentation concluded with thunderous applause. As the crowd mingled afterward, Lily noticed Max slip away from the main group. Following an instinct, she found him in a quiet corner of the warehouse, staring out a window at the city lights. "That was quite a speech," she said softly. He turned, and for a moment she saw weariness in his eyes before he smiled. "Was it too much? I usually try to keep the revolutionary rhetoric to a minimum at these things." "It was honest," Lily moved closer. "That's what made it powerful." Max loosened his tie, looking more like himself. "Want to get some air?" They ended up on the warehouse's rooftop terrace, the city spread out before them like a carpet of stars. The night air was cool, and Max draped his jacket over Lily's shoulders without comment. "You know," Lily said, "when I first met you I thought you were just another rich guy playing at being rebellious." Max laughed, but there was no humor in it. The media loves that narrative, the spoiled billionaire acting out. He ran a hand through his hair. "It's easier for them to paint me as reckless than to admit I might be right about how corrupt the system is." "When did you start fighting back?" "Remember the housing crisis 5 years ago?" When Lily nodded, he continued. "I was already successful then, but watching families lose everything while banks got bailouts, something snapped. I started using my resources to expose the manipulation, to create alternatives." "And that's when they labeled you a bad boy?" "Apparently, questioning the status quo makes you dangerous." He turned to face her fully. "The more I pushed, the more resistance I met. But I couldn't stop, not when I saw how many people were suffering." Lily studied his face in the moonlight, seeing past the carefully maintained facade to the man beneath. "You're afraid," she realized. "Every day," he admitted quietly. "Not of losing money or status. I'm afraid of failing, of letting down all the people who need this to work." The vulnerability in his voice touched something in Lily. This wasn't the arrogant billionaire she'd first judged him to be. This was someone fighting a battle much bigger than himself, carrying weights she hadn't imagined. "Your dream," she said softly, "of changing the system. It's not just talk, is it?" "No," Max replied, his eyes meeting hers. "It's the only thing that matters." The late afternoon sun painted Max's penthouse office in warm hues as Lily sat across from him, both nursing cups of coffee. The usual bustle of the city below felt distant up here, creating an intimate bubble where pretenses gradually fell away. "You never told me about your family," Lily said, curling her legs beneath her on the leather armchair. She'd grown more comfortable in these luxurious settings, though they still felt surreal. Max's expression shifted, a subtle tightening around his eyes. "Not much to tell. Father was always working. Mother was always at charity events. I practically grew up in boarding schools." "That sounds lonely," Lily observed, watching him carefully. "It was educational," he replied with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I learned early that wealth doesn't equal happiness. My parents had everything except time for their son." Lily set her coffee down. "Is that why you're different? Why you care about helping others?" Max stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection ghost-like against the cityscape. "Maybe. Or maybe seeing empty mansions while people sleep on streets just seemed wrong." He turned back to her. "What about you? What made you become a writer?" "Words were my escape," Lily admitted. "When bill collectors called and Mom was crying at the kitchen table, I'd hide in my room and write stories. Created worlds where things were fair, where people could change their circumstances. And now I write to give others that same hope." She joined him at the window. "Though lately, I'm starting to believe change is possible in this world too." Their eyes met in the reflection, and something electric passed between them. Max's hand found hers, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Later that evening, they sat across from each other in a private dining room at Le Petit Jardin. Candles cast a soft glow over the intimate space, and the rest of the world seemed to fade away. Max had loosened his tie, and Lily noticed how his guard lowered with each passing moment. "Remember when you called me a bad boy at that charity event?" Max asked, amusement dancing in his eyes. Lily groaned, covering her face. "Please don't remind me. I was so judgmental." "You were honest," he corrected. "Everyone else just whispered behind my back. You said it to my face." "Still, I'm sorry. I had no idea who you really were." Max leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "And who am I, Lily?" She studied him, taking in the subtle signs of exhaustion beneath his confident exterior. The slight shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders from carrying the weight of his mission. "You're someone who could have chosen an easy life but decided to fight instead," she said softly. "Someone who uses his power to protect others, even when it costs you personally." Her voice grew quieter. "Someone who hides his heart behind wealth and status because it's safer that way." Max's breath caught, and for a moment, his carefully constructed walls crumbled completely. "Most people only see what they want to see," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "The rich rebel, the arrogant billionaire, the bad boy of Wall Street." "I see you," Lily whispered, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I see someone who's tired of fighting alone." The vulnerability in his eyes made her heart ache. Here was the real Max, not the confident CEO or the wealthy philanthropist, but a man who carried the burden of his choices every day, a man who risked everything to change a system that had given him every advantage. As they sat there, hands linked across the table, Lily felt something shift inside her. The last of her preconceptions fell away, replaced by a deeper understanding and an emotion she wasn't quite ready to name. But she knew, with startling clarity, that she was falling for the man behind the reputation, the one who dreamed of making the world better, who fought against impossible odds, who dared to be vulnerable with her in ways he'd never been with anyone else. The candles burned lower, casting dancing shadows across their faces as they talked into the night, sharing pieces of themselves that they'd kept hidden from the world. The conference room buzzed with tension as Max stood at the head of the table, his jaw clenched. Lily sat quietly in the corner, taking notes for the company's blog, but her attention was fixed on the storm brewing in front of her. "These accusations are baseless," Max said, his voice steady despite the fury in his eyes. He tossed the morning's financial newspaper onto the glass table. The headline screamed, "Ross Technologies, Smoke and Mirrors in Affordable Housing." "They're calling our product a scam," Sarah, the head of PR, reported grimly. Henderson Real Estate is pushing the narrative that our technology doesn't work, that we're selling false hope to desperate families. Lily watched Max's shoulders tighten. She'd never seen him like this, contained rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior, his fingers pressed into the table's edge until his knuckles went white. Henderson's CEO is on 3 news channels right now, another executive added, scrolling through his tablet. He's questioning your credentials, Max. Says you're just a rich kid playing at being a savior. Max's laugh was bitter. Of course he is. Henderson's built his fortune on keeping housing prices inflated. Our product threatens everything he stands for. Lily's pen stilled as she absorbed the scene. The Max before her wasn't the charming man who'd taken her to dinner, or the passionate visionary who'd shared his dreams. This was a warrior under siege, and the weight of the battle showed in every line of his body. Their lobbyists are pushing for an investigation into our permits, Sarah continued. They're trying to delay the launch. They can't stop us, Max declared, but Lily caught the slight tremor in his voice. Get me a meeting with our legal team, and schedule a press conference. We need to counter these accusations before they gain traction. The meeting dispersed, leaving Max alone with Lily. She watched as he sank into his chair, the mask of confidence slipping away. In the silence, he looked exhausted, vulnerable in a way that made her heart ache. "Hey," she said softly, moving to sit beside him. "Are you okay?" Max ran a hand through his dark hair. "I should have expected this. Henderson's just the beginning. The entire industry's going to come after us now." Because your product would make housing affordable? Because it would change everything. He turned to her, his eyes intense. You know what they call me in the press? The bad boy of real estate, the rich rebel. They think I'm doing this for attention, for the thrill of disrupting markets. But that's not true, Lily said, understanding dawning. No. Max stood, pacing by the window. I cultivated that image deliberately. The flashy investments, the public challenges to industry leaders, it was all calculated. If they saw me as just another arrogant billionaire seeking headlines, they wouldn't take me seriously until it was too late. Lily felt her chest tighten as the pieces fell into place. You made yourself a target. Better they focus on attacking my character than looking too closely at what we're building. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass. But now they're catching on. They realize what we could do to their profit margins, how our technology could democratize housing access. And they're scared, Lily finished, terrified. Max turned back to her, and the raw honesty in his expression took her breath away. This isn't just about making money, Lily. The housing market is controlled by a handful of powerful people who profit from keeping others in debt. They'll do anything to maintain that control. Lily stood, moving closer to him. Including destroying you? They'll try? His smile was grim. The bad boy persona gives me some protection. People expect me to be controversial. But this fight? He gestured to the newspaper. It's going to get ugly. Looking at him now, Lily felt her heart swell with admiration for his courage, his willingness to risk everything for what he believed in. But fear crept in too, cold and insistent. She'd seen what powerful people could do to protect their interests. Max wasn't just taking on a company or an industry. He was challenging an entire system. His hand found hers, warm and steady despite everything. I never wanted to drag you into this, he said quietly. I'm already here, she replied, squeezing his fingers. And I'm not going anywhere. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Max's corner office, casting long shadows across the empty space. At nearly midnight, the usual bustle of the corporate floor had faded to silence. Lily's heels clicked against the hardwood as she made her way to where Max stood, his silhouette dark against the glittering skyline. Thanks for coming, he said without turning around. His voice carried the weight of exhaustion. I know it's late. Of course. Lily settled into one of the leather chairs, taking in the subtle signs of Max's stress. His loosened tie, the scattered papers across his usually immaculate desk, the half-empty coffee cups littering every surface. Henderson's lawyers filed their injunction today. Max finally turned to face her, and the shadows under his eyes were deeper than she'd ever seen them. They're claiming our technology violates some obscure housing regulations from the 1950s. Can they do that? They can try. He sank into the chair behind his desk, running both hands through his disheveled hair. And while we fight it in court, they'll keep spreading rumors, keep pushing their narrative. Every delay costs us money, costs us credibility. Lily leaned forward, studying him. Your legal team said you have a strong case. It's not just about the legal battle anymore. Max's laugh was hollow. Did you see today's headlines? Tech billionaire's housing scheme, innovation or illusion? They're painting me as some sort of snake oil salesman. He stood abruptly, pacing the length of his office. You know what the worst part is? The people who need this technology the most. Families like yours? People struggling to make rent. They're starting to believe the lies. Henderson and his cronies are convincing them that we're the enemy. Max. Lily rose, catching his arm as he passed. You need to breathe. When was the last time you slept? He shrugged off her touch, but his voice softened. Sleep is a luxury I can't afford right now. Every minute we waste is another victory for them. Running yourself into the ground won't help anyone, Lily insisted. She could see the tension coiled in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled slightly when he reached for his coffee cup. You're not alone in this fight. Max stilled, and for a moment the carefully constructed walls around him seemed to crack. Sometimes it feels like I am. He sank onto the edge of his desk, suddenly looking younger, more vulnerable. Do you know why I started playing up the bad boy image? Lily shook her head, moving closer. Because it's easier, he admitted. When people think you're just some reckless rich kid, they underestimate you. They don't look too closely at what you're really doing. And if they do hurt you, his voice caught. Well, bad boys don't feel pain, right? But you do feel it, Lily said softly. More than anyone knows. Max's eyes met hers, stripped of their usual guardedness. This company, this mission, it's not just about disrupting the market or making headlines. I've seen too many people crushed by a system that's designed to keep them down. My own parents... He stopped, swallowing hard. What about them? They were brilliant scientists, but they played by the rules, tried to change things from within the system. The corporations they fought against destroyed them, professionally, personally. I watched them lose everything because they weren't willing to play dirty. His fists clenched. I swore I wouldn't make the same mistake. Lily stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Being willing to fight doesn't mean you have to fight alone. The persona protects people, Max said quietly. If I'm the target, if I'm the one they're trying to tear down, then my team is safer. You're safer. And who protects you? Lily challenged. She could feel the tension in his muscles, the weight he carried. Max looked up at her, his carefully crafted armor falling away completely. I stopped expecting protection a long time ago. The morning light barely touched the windows of Max's office when his assistant burst through the door, face pale. Lily, who had stayed late helping Max organize documents, looked up from her laptop. Mr. Henderson, sir. The assistant's voice trembled. Blackridge Capital just pulled their funding. Max froze, his coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips. What? They cited unsustainable risk levels and regulatory concerns. The official notice just came through. Lily watched as Max's expression shifted from shock to understanding to barely contained rage. Blackridge Capital had been their largest private investor, committing nearly $50 million to the housing project. "Get Marcus from legal on the line," Max ordered, his voice tight, "and tell communications to prepare for damage control." The assistant hurried out, leaving them in charged silence. Max stood motionless for a long moment, then suddenly hurled his coffee cup against the wall. The ceramic shattered, dark liquid streaming down the expensive wallpaper. "Max," Lily started. "Don't." He held up a hand, pacing like a caged animal. "This isn't a coincidence. Henderson got to them. He must have promised them something bigger, better." "We can find other investors," Lily suggested, trying to keep her voice calm. "Your prototype works. The data is solid." "Other investors?" Max laughed bitterly. "Blackridge pulling out is like blood in the water. Every other firm will run scared now. They'll think Henderson knows something we don't." Lily watched him rake his hands through his hair, his usual composed demeanor crumbling. "Then we scale back. Start smaller, prove the concept." "We can't scale back." Max slammed his hands on the desk. "Every delay means more families trapped in overpriced housing, more people choosing between rent and food, more kids growing up in—" He stopped, breathing hard. "I understand that," Lily said, standing up. "But pushing forward recklessly isn't the answer. You're talking about betting everything on this launch." "Because it's worth the risk." Max turned to her, eyes blazing. "This isn't just business, Lily. This is war. Henderson and his cronies want to keep people dependent, desperate. They profit from suffering." "And you think martyring yourself will fix that?" Lily stepped closer, her own temper rising. "Look at yourself, Max. When's the last time you slept? You're running on coffee and spite." "I don't need sleep. I need to make this work." "By what? Draining your personal accounts? Leveraging everything you own?" Lily's voice rose. "I saw the numbers, Max. Without Blackridge, you'd have to risk everything you have to keep this on schedule." Max's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "I understand better than you think," Lily shot back. "I grew up watching my parents work themselves to death, trying to keep a roof over our heads. But they were smart enough to know when to step back, when to find another way." "There is no other way," Max's voice echoed through the office. "Henderson and his kind own every other way. They've spent decades building a system that keeps people like your parents trapped. If we don't break it now, someone else will have to try later." "And what happens when they crush you?" Lily demanded. "When they take everything you've built? Who will fight them then?" "At least I'll have fought," Max growled. "At least I won't have played it safe while people suffer." Lily felt tears of frustration burning in her eyes. "This isn't about playing it safe. This is about fighting smart, about living to fight another day." "I never took you for a coward, Lily." The words fell between them like ice. "And I never took you for a fool," she shot back, grabbing her bag. "But I guess we were both wrong." The silence that followed was deafening. They stood facing each other, both breathing hard, the morning sun casting long shadows across the floor. "I can't back down," Max finally said, his voice lower but no less determined. "Not now, not ever." "Then you'll lose everything," Lily whispered, her heart breaking for him, for them, for everything they'd built. "And I can't watch that happen." Lily sat in her small apartment, staring at the rain streaming down her window. The argument with Max kept playing in her head, each word cutting deeper with every replay. Her laptop hummed on the coffee table, opened to articles about Max's company and their affordable housing initiative. She wrapped her hands around a cooling mug of tea, remembering the way Max's coffee had splattered across his office wall. His passion wasn't wrong. She knew that. The memories of her parents' struggles were still fresh. The late-night conversations about bills, the constant juggling of expenses, the shame in her mother's voice when she had to ask for extensions on rent. "Damn it," she muttered. setting down her mug harder than necessary. She pulled her laptop closer, starting to dig deeper into the housing crisis statistics. The numbers were staggering. Millions of families just like hers, trapped in a cycle of expensive rent and mounting debt. Her phone buzzed. Kate's message read, "You okay? Haven't heard from you since the blow-up." Lily typed back, "Just thinking, a lot." "About Mr. Billion-Dollar Bad Boy?" Despite herself, Lily smiled. That first night at the charity event felt like years ago. She'd been so quick to judge, so certain she had Max figured out. Now she understood. His bad boy reputation wasn't about rebellion for its own sake. It was about fighting a system that most people didn't even realize was rigged. She opened a new document and started typing, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Max's problem wasn't his mission. It was his approach. He was trying to fight giants head-on, using their own weapons against them. But what if there was another way? Hours passed as Lily researched, wrote, and planned. Her living room floor became covered with printed articles and sticky notes. She found stories of successful grassroots campaigns, examples of companies that had succeeded through community support rather than big investor backing. The sky was darkening when Lily finally sat back, looking at what she'd assembled. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. She reached for her phone, hesitating only briefly before dialing Max's number. He answered on the fourth ring. "Lily." His voice was rough, tired. "I need to see you," she said. "I have an idea." "Lily, if this is about backing down—" "It's not," she cut him off. "It's about fighting smarter, not harder. Please, just hear me out." There was a long pause. "Fine, come to the office." An hour later, Lily walked into Max's office, her arms full of papers and her heart pounding. Max looked exhausted, his usual pristine appearance slightly disheveled. He'd probably been there all day, trying to salvage the situation with Blackridge. "Here's the thing," Lily started, spreading her research across his desk. "You're trying to fight billionaires with billions, but what if we built support from the ground up instead?" Max frowned, picking up one of her papers. "What do you mean?" "Look at these numbers," Lily pointed to her research. "There are thousands of small business owners, local philanthropists, and community organizations who care about affordable housing. They might not have Blackridge's millions, but together, they could create a movement," Max finished, starting to catch on. "Exactly. Instead of one big investor who can pull out and sink us, we build a network of supporters who are actually invested in the mission, not just the profit margin." Max studied her notes, his brow furrowed. "It would take longer. We'd need to coordinate with more people, manage more relationships." "Yes," Lily admitted, "but it would be more stable. And more importantly, it would prove that the community believes in this project. That could attract bigger investors who share our values, not just our profit goals." Max was quiet for a long moment, flipping through her research. "This would mean completely changing our strategy," he said finally. "It's risky in a different way." "Everything worth doing is risky," Lily said softly. "But at least this way we're building something that can't be torn down by one phone call from Henderson." Max looked up at her, a hint of his old spark returning to his eyes. "We?" he asked. Lily met his gaze steadily. "Yes, we. If you'll let me help." The office hummed with late-night energy as Lily and Max hunched over his desk, surrounded by scattered papers and empty coffee cups. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a soft glow around them. "What about Sarah Chen?" Lily suggested, tapping her pen against a list of local business owners. "Her organic grocery chain has been fighting for better community access for years." Max loosened his tie, studying the profile Lily had compiled. "Chen's Foods. They've got 17 locations across the city, all in mixed-income neighborhoods." He rubbed his tired eyes. "But would she want to get involved in housing?" That's exactly why she would, Lily explained, pulling up an article on her laptop. Look at this interview from last month. She talks about how her customers struggle with housing costs, how it affects their ability to buy healthy food. She turned the screen toward Max. She gets it. She sees the bigger picture. Max leaned in, reading the interview. His shoulder brushed against Lily's, and she caught a whiff of his cologne mixed with coffee. You might be onto something here, he admitted. They spent the next few hours building their pitch. Lily's writing background helped them craft a narrative that went beyond numbers and projections, focusing on the human impact of their project. Max's business expertise helped them structure the financial aspects in a way that would appeal to smaller investors. We need to show them it's not just about charity, Max said, pacing the office. It's about sustainable community development. When families have affordable housing, they can spend more at local businesses. Everyone wins. Lily nodded, typing furiously. That's perfect. We'll lead with the community angle. She paused, looking up at him. You know, for someone who's supposed to be a bad boy, you're pretty good at this whole making the world better thing. Max's lips quirked into a smile. Don't tell anyone. You'll ruin my reputation. They worked through the night, fueled by determination and vending machine snacks. By morning, they had a solid presentation and a list of potential allies. Max insisted on driving Lily home to change before their meeting with Sarah Chen. 3 hours later, they sat in Chen's office, surrounded by photographs of local farmers and community events. Sarah Chen herself was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened intently as they presented their vision. So, she said when they finished, you want to revolutionize affordable housing by starting with community support rather than corporate backing? She studied them both carefully. It's an unusual approach, especially for someone with your resources, Mr. Sterling. Sometimes the usual approaches aren't enough, Max replied. We need partners who understand what's really at stake. And what is really at stake, in your view? Lily spoke up. The future of our communities. When housing costs eat up most of people's income, everything suffers. Health, education, local businesses. But when people can afford their homes, she gestured to the photos on the wall. They can shop at stores like yours. They can participate in community events. They can thrive. Sarah nodded slowly, then reached for her phone. Janet, cancel my next appointment. She looked back at Max and Lily. Let's talk details. 2 hours later, they emerged from Chen's office with a signed letter of intent. Sarah Chen wasn't just committing her own support. She was offering to introduce them to other business owners who might be interested. In the elevator, Max turned to Lily. He shook his head, smiling. I've been trying to get meetings with major investors for months, and you just helped us secure a partner who might be worth more than all of them. Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most obvious ones, Lily said, trying to hide how pleased she was. We just needed to look at it differently. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped out into the bright afternoon sunlight. Max's phone was already buzzing with messages from his team, eager to hear about the meeting. But for a moment, he just stood there, looking at Lily with a new appreciation. Thank you, he said simply, for helping me see things differently. The office hummed with late-night energy as Lily and Max pored over spreadsheets and presentation decks. Their success with Sarah Chen had energized them, leading to longer hours and more intense collaboration. Chinese takeout containers littered Max's desk, evidence of another dinner spent strategizing. Look at these numbers, Lily said, leaning over Max's shoulder to point at his laptop screen. Her perfume, something light and floral, made it hard for him to focus. If we get even half of Chen's network on board, we could launch in 3 districts instead of just 1. Max nodded, hyper-aware of how close she was. The impact would be significant. We could help thousands more families. He turned his head slightly, finding her face inches from his. The soft glow of the desk lamp caught the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Lily straightened up, walking to the window. The city sparkled below them, a maze of lights and possibilities. "It's beautiful up here at night," she said softly. "Makes you forget about all the problems down there." Max joined her at the window, their shoulders barely touching. "That's why I picked this office. Reminds me of what we're fighting for." He gestured to the buildings below. "Every light represents a family, a story. Some of them are struggling just to keep their homes." Lily turned to face him, struck by the passion in his voice. "You really mean that, don't you? All this isn't just some corporate game to you." "No," he said quietly. "It never was." His eyes met hers, intense and sincere. "You saw that before anyone else did, even when you were calling me a bad boy at that charity event." Lily laughed, but the sound caught in her throat as Max stepped closer. The air between them felt electric, charged with weeks of growing attraction and shared purpose. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "Not entirely." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing softly against her skin. "I can still be bad when I want to be." The kiss started gentle, a questioning touch of lips. Then Lily's hands found their way to Max's chest, and his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, filled with weeks of suppressed desire and growing connection. Max backed her against the window, the cool glass a stark contrast to the heat building between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, reality started to seep back in. Lily's mind raced with implications. This was Max Sterling, billionaire, crusader, man with a target on his back, the same man whose enemies were trying to destroy everything he'd built. "Max," she started, uncertainty creeping into her voice. He pressed his forehead against hers, eyes closed. "I know. This complicates things." Lily stepped away from the window, creating space between them. Her lips still tingled from the kiss, but her thoughts were a jumbled mess. "We're in the middle of something important here. The project, the investors, everything we're working for. Are you saying this was a mistake?" There was vulnerability in his voice that made her heart ache. "No," she said quickly. "God, no, but—" She ran a hand through her hair, frustrated. "You're already fighting so many battles. The corporate wolves, the media, the system itself. And I'm just—" "Just what?" Max stepped toward her but stopped when she held up a hand. "I'm just me. A freelance writer who barely makes rent some months. Someone who could become a liability, a distraction when you need to focus most." The words hurt to say, but the fear behind them was real. Max's jaw tightened. "You're the reason we're making progress. You're the one who showed me a different way forward." "And what happens when the next crisis hits? When your enemies use this, use me, against you?" Lily gathered her things, needing space to think. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, Max. For all of it." She could feel his eyes on her as she moved toward the door, could sense him wanting to stop her. But he remained where he was, respecting her need for distance. "We should focus on the work," she said, hand on the doorknob. "At least until we figure this out." The silence that followed her out was deafening. The morning headlines hit like a sledgehammer. Lily's hands shook as she scrolled through article after article on her phone, each one worse than the last. Sterling Tech's housing scam exposed. Whistleblower reveals fatal flaws in affordable housing tech. Max Sterling, profiting from false promises? Her coffee went cold as she read through the accusations. According to anonymous inside sources, Max's revolutionary housing technology was fundamentally flawed. The articles claimed the materials were substandard, the construction methods unsafe, and the whole project nothing more than an elaborate scheme to exploit desperate families. Lily knew it was all lies. She'd seen the testing data herself, spent countless hours reviewing the research with Max's team, but the damage was already spreading across social media like wildfire. Her phone buzzed, Kate calling. "Have you seen the news?" her friend asked without preamble. "Yeah." Lily's voice was tight. "It's complete bullshit. The stock is tanking. They're saying investors are pulling out left and right." Lily grabbed her keys and bag. "I need to get to the office." The Sterling Tech building was in chaos when she arrived. Security guards were holding back a crowd of reporters at the entrance. Inside, employees huddled in small groups, whispering and checking their phones. The atmosphere crackled with tension and fear. She found Max in the conference room, surrounded by his legal team. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept. He was still wearing yesterday's suit, the sleeves rolled up, his usually perfect hair disheveled. When he saw her, something in his expression softened briefly before hardening again. "Lily!" He dismissed his lawyers with a wave. "You shouldn't be here." "Like hell I shouldn't." She closed the door behind her. "Who's behind this?" Max ran a hand through his hair. "Take your pick. Chen Development, Westbrook Holdings, half the real estate conglomerates in the city. They're all celebrating right now." "But the claims are ridiculous. We have proof." "Proof doesn't matter when they control the narrative." He gestured to the wall of screens showing various news channels, all running the same stories. "They're painting me as a con man preying on poor families. By the time we could prove otherwise, the damage will be done." Lily watched as another investor announcement scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Another partnership pulled. More millions lost. "There has to be something we can do." "The board is meeting in an hour." Max's voice was flat. "They're going to demand we suspend the project." "You can't let them." 3 of our biggest investors pulled out this morning. Our stock has dropped 40%. Partners are running scared." He slammed his hand on the table. "Damn it, I should have seen this coming. They were never going to let us threaten their precious system." Lily moved closer, wanting to comfort him but unsure how. Since their kiss, things had been careful, professional. But seeing him like this, it hurt. "The families in the pilot program," she said softly. "The ones already depending on this technology. Will be taken care of. I'll make sure of it." Max's jaw clenched. "Even if I have to pay for it myself." His phone buzzed, another crisis demanding attention. Lily watched as he took the call, his responses clipped and professional, even as she could see him crumbling inside. This wasn't just about money or reputation anymore. This was personal. When he hung up, the defeat in his eyes scared her. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Maybe this was always impossible. One company trying to change a system that's been rigged for generations." "Max, I thought if we built something good enough, important enough, they'd have to let it succeed." He laughed bitterly. "Naive, right? Thinking you could fight corruption with innovation?" Before Lily could respond, his assistant burst in. "Mr. Sterling, the board is assembling early. They're demanding immediate action." Max straightened his tie, his mask of corporate confidence sliding back into place. But Lily saw what lay beneath now. The exhaustion, the doubt, the fear that everything he'd fought for was slipping away. He paused at the door. "Whatever happens in there, thank you for believing in this. In me." Lily watched him walk away, her heart heavy with the weight of dreams being crushed by greed and power. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the empty conference room, and she wondered if some battles were simply too big to win. The next morning brought no relief. Lily sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through endless headlines about Sterling Tech's downfall. The media circus had transformed overnight into a feeding frenzy. Every financial news outlet seemed to be running variations of the same story. Sterling Tech's housing revolution? A house of cards? Her phone buzzed with a text from Max. "Turn on Channel 8. She grabbed her remote with trembling hands. There he was, surrounded by a mob of reporters outside Sterling Tech's headquarters. The camera zoomed in on his face as he tried to maintain composure, but Lily could see the strain in his eyes. "Mr. Sterling, how do you respond to allegations that your affordable housing technology is fundamentally flawed?" a reporter shouted. "The claims are baseless," Max responded, his voice steady but tired. "Sterling Tech stands by our product and sources say your biggest investors are pulling out. Is this the end of your housing revolution?" Before Max could answer, another reporter jumped in. "Was this all just a publicity stunt to boost your image?" Lily's heart clenched as she watched Max's facade crack for just a moment. The hurt in his eyes was visible before he managed to school his features back into neutrality. She grabbed her keys and headed to his office. The security guard recognized her and waved her through, his expression grim. The usual buzz of the office was replaced by a heavy silence. Employees moved like ghosts between cubicles, speaking in whispers. She found Max in his private office, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. Papers were scattered across his desk. Financial reports, legal documents, press releases. His suit jacket was draped over a chair, his tie loosened. "I saw the news," Lily said softly. Max didn't turn around. "It's worse than their reporting. The board meeting yesterday." He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "They're demanding we scale back everything. No more expansion. No more pilot programs." "But the families—" "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "I've spent the morning trying to figure out how to tell them their dreams of affordable housing are being crushed by corporate greed." Lily moved closer, placing a hand on his arm. He tensed at her touch, but didn't pull away. "This isn't your fault, Max." "Isn't it?" He finally turned to face her, his eyes haunted. "I'm the one who thought I could change things. I'm the one who promised people hope." He gestured to the papers on his desk. "Look at these numbers, Lily. We're bleeding money. Our stock is worthless. Everything I've built is falling apart." She picked up one of the reports, scanning the figures. The losses were staggering. "There has to be a way to fight back. We could— Stop!" Max's voice was sharp. "Just stop. I can't do this right now." "Do what?" "Listen to more optimism, more plans. More fighting." He slumped into his chair. "I'm tired, Lily, so damn tired." She reached for him, but he held up a hand, keeping her at bay. "Max, please don't shut me out." "You should go," he said quietly. "The press is starting to dig into everyone associated with the company. It's only a matter of time before they find you. Your reputation. I don't care about my reputation." "Well, I do." His sudden shout made her jump. He immediately looked contrite. "I'm sorry. I can't watch them destroy you too. You should distance yourself while you still can." "That's not your decision to make." "Actually, it is." He straightened in his chair, and Lily recognized the mask sliding back into place. The cold, corporate exterior he showed the world. "I appreciate everything you've done, but I think it's best if we take a step back. Professionally and personally." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You don't mean that." "I do." He turned back to the window, effectively dismissing her. "Goodbye, Lily." She stood there for a long moment, watching his rigid posture, seeing the way his hands clenched at his sides. He was pushing her away to protect her, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. As she left his office, She caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass, the lost, broken look on his face that he was trying so hard to hide. But he had made his choice, and for now, all she could do was respect it. Lily sat at her kitchen table, staring at her untouched coffee while morning light filtered through the windows. Her phone buzzed again. Another news alert about Sterling Tech's troubles. She switched it off, unable to bear reading another headline about Max's downfall. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Kate said, sliding into the chair across from her. She'd come over as soon as Lily called, still wearing her yoga pants and carrying a bag of fresh bagels. "I haven't, really." Lily pushed her coffee away. "Every time I close my eyes, I see his face, the way he looked when he told me to leave." "And you actually listened to him?" Kate raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like the Lily I know." "What was I supposed to do? He made it pretty clear he doesn't want me around." "Oh, please." Kate reached across the table and grabbed Lily's hand. "That man is so obviously trying to protect you that it's almost painful to watch. The question is, do you need his protection?" Lily pulled her hand away, standing up to pace the small kitchen. "Maybe he's right. This whole situation, it's bigger than anything I've ever dealt with. The press, the corporate battles, the millions of dollars at stake. It's not my world." "Since when do you let something being not your world stop you?" Kate challenged. "Remember college, when that professor said freelance writers never make it? You proved him wrong. When your parents said moving to the city was too risky, you did it anyway. This is different. Is it? Or are you just scared?" Lily stopped pacing, leaning against the counter. "Of course I'm scared. You should see what they're writing about him, Kate. The vultures are circling, waiting for him to fail, and now they're starting to dig into everyone around him." "So what?" Kate stood up, crossing the kitchen to face her friend. "Let them dig. What are they going to find? A hard-working writer who believes in making the world better? Someone who sees past Max's billions to the person he really is? They'll twist everything, make up stories, ruin my career." "Your career?" Kate scoffed. "The career you built by telling other people's stories, by giving voice to the truth? And now you're running away from possibly the most important story you could tell?" Lily fell silent, Kate's words hitting home. She thought about Max's vision, affordable housing for families like hers, a chance to break the cycle of poverty. She thought about the late nights they'd spent planning, his passion when he talked about changing the system. "He's not just fighting for himself," Lily said quietly. "There are real people counting on this project, families who thought they'd finally have a chance." "Exactly." Kate's voice softened. "And from everything you've told me about Max, that's what's really killing him. Not the stock prices or the bad press, but letting those people down." Lily sank back into her chair, running her hands through her hair. "I don't know how to help him. He's built these walls around himself." "Then break them down." Kate sat beside her. "You're good at that, remember? It's why he opened up to you in the first place." "What if I'm not strong enough? What if I get in too deep and lose myself in his world?" Kate laughed. "Lose yourself? Lily, in all the years I've known you, you've never been more yourself than when you're fighting for something you believe in. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you believe in Max's vision, don't you?" "Yes," Lily whispered. "I do." "Then stop hiding in your apartment. Stop letting him push you away because he thinks he's protecting you. Show him that you're strong enough to stand beside him, not behind him." Lily looked at her friend, seeing the fierce belief in her eyes. Kate had always been her rock, the voice of reason when she doubted herself. And right now, that voice was telling her to fight. Standing up, Lily grabbed her keys. "I need to see him." "That's my girl." Kate grinned. "Go get your billionaire back." "And Lily?" she called as Lily reached the door. "Remember who you are. That's what he fell for in the first place. With renewed determination, Lily headed for her car. Kate was right. She hadn't built her career by playing it safe. She'd built it by telling the truth, by fighting for what she believed in. And right now she believed in Max Sterling and his vision for a better world. Lily found Max in his penthouse office, surrounded by screens displaying news headlines and market data. The city lights twinkled behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a halo effect around his silhouette. He looked exhausted, his usual sharp appearance slightly rumpled, tie loosened around his neck. "Lily?" He straightened when she entered, surprise evident in his voice. "I didn't expect—" "We need to talk," she interrupted, closing the door behind her. "And this time you're going to actually listen." Max ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I thought I made it clear that you're trying to protect me?" Lily crossed the room, stopping at his desk. "Here's the thing, Max. I don't need protection. What I need is for you to trust me enough to let me stand beside you." His shoulders slumped slightly. "You don't understand what these people are capable of. The things they'll do." "I understand perfectly well," she said firmly. "I've seen the headlines, I've read the hit pieces, but pushing me away isn't protecting me. It's just hurting us both." Max stood up, walking to the window. "I've spent my whole life fighting this system, Lily. I've seen what happens to people who get too close to me. The scrutiny, the lies, the pressure. I couldn't bear to watch them destroy you, too. So you decided to destroy us first." She moved to stand beside him. "That's not your choice to make, Max. It's mine, and I choose to stay." He turned to face her, vulnerability clear in his eyes. "I'm terrified," he admitted quietly. "Not of losing the money or the company, but of failing all those families who are counting on this project. Of failing you." "Then let me help you." Lily reached for his hand. "Stop trying to carry this burden alone." Max's fingers intertwined with hers. "I don't know how to do this," he confessed. "I've always handled everything on my own. It's safer that way." "Safer, maybe, but lonely." Lily squeezed his hand. "You taught me to question my assumptions about wealth and power. Now it's your turn to question your assumptions about vulnerability." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Using my own words against me?" "Learning from the best." She led him to the couch in the corner of his office. "Talk to me, Max. Really talk to me. What are you afraid of?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm afraid that no matter what I do, the system will win. That all this fighting, all these sacrifices will be for nothing. That I'll end up just like my father, another rich man who talked about change but never actually made a difference." "You're not your father," Lily said softly. "You've already proven that. But maybe we're going about this the wrong way." Max looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" "We've been fighting this battle on their terms. Stock prices, market share, corporate strategy. But that's not what this project is really about. Is it?" "No," he agreed. "It's about people. Families like yours who deserve a chance at stability." "Exactly." Lily sat up straighter, excitement building in her voice. "So let's show people that. Instead of press releases about market disruption, let's tell the stories of the families this project could help. Let's put faces to the numbers." Max's eyes lit up with understanding. "Humanize the mission." "Make it personal," Lily nodded. "Show the public what we're really fighting for. Not just affordable housing, but dignity, hope, a future for families who've been locked out of the system for generations." "The corporate vultures won't care about that," Max warned, but there was a spark of hope in his voice. "No, but the public will, and public support is what we need right now." Lily squeezed his hand. "Let me help you tell this story, Max. Not as a business venture, but as a human mission." Max was quiet for a moment, studying their joined hands. "I've been so focused on fighting the system that I forgot why I started this fight in the first place," he admitted. "Thank you for reminding me." "Partners?" Lily asked softly. Max pulled her closer, pressing his forehead to hers. "Partners," he agreed. "In everything." They spent the next few hours outlining their new strategy, focusing on identifying families willing to share their stories and planning community outreach events. For the first time in weeks, Max's eyes held hope instead of exhaustion, and Lily felt the strength of their connection returning, stronger than before. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as investors and journalists filed in, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Lily stood near the podium, adjusting the display materials one last time. Her hands trembled slightly, but her resolve remained firm. Max entered through the side door, looking sharp in his tailored suit. But it was his eyes that caught Lily's attention, clear, focused, and filled with purpose. Gone was the haunted look of recent weeks. He moved to stand beside her, his shoulder brushing against hers. "Ready?" he whispered. "As I'll ever be," Lily replied, smoothing her blazer. The lights dimmed, and Max stepped forward to address the room. "Thank you all for coming today. We're here to share something different, not just numbers and projections, but the heart of what we're fighting for." The presentation screen came to life, showing the face of Sarah Martinez, a single mother of 3 who'd been struggling with housing insecurity for years. Her story, carefully crafted by Lily, filled the room with an undeniable humanity that transcended business metrics. "This is why we're here," Max continued, his voice strong and passionate. "Not to disrupt markets or chase profits, but to change lives." Lily watched as the audience leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the succession of personal stories they'd gathered. Each narrative highlighted not just the housing crisis, but the human cost of corporate greed and systemic inequality. When Max introduced their revised implementation plan, it was no longer just about innovative technology. Instead, they showcased how their solution would integrate with community needs, support local businesses, and create sustainable change from the ground up. The energy in the room shifted perceptibly. Journalists who'd come expecting another corporate damage control presentation were now furiously taking notes. Investors who'd been wavering began nodding along, seeing not just the potential for profit, but the opportunity to be part of meaningful change. During the Q&A session, Lily stepped forward to address questions about community impact. Her natural empathy and deep understanding of the project shone through, complementing Max's technical expertise perfectly. They moved in sync, each anticipating and building upon the other's responses. "This isn't just about housing," Lily explained, her voice clear and confident. "It's about giving people the stability they need to build better lives. When families have secure homes, communities thrive. Children do better in school. Local businesses grow. It's a ripple effect that benefits everyone." As the presentation concluded, the room erupted in enthusiastic applause. Investors who had been keeping their distance now approached Max with renewed interest. Journalists clustered around Lily, eager to dig deeper into the human stories behind the project. "Ms. Chen from the Chronicle is particularly interested in doing a feature," Max's PR director reported, beaming. "She says it's refreshing to see a tech company leading with heart instead of hype." Hours later, after the last investor had left and the media crews had packed up their equipment, Max and Lily found themselves alone in his office. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a gentle backdrop to their moment of quiet celebration. "I can't believe how well that went," Lily said, slipping off her heels and curling up in one of the leather chairs. "Did you see Thompson's face when we showed the community impact projections?" Max loosened his tie, a smile playing at his lips. "I was more impressed by how you handled Robert's questions about scalability. You've really mastered this stuff." Well, I had a good teacher. Lily met his gaze, feeling the warmth of their shared accomplishment. Max moved to stand near her chair, his expression softening. We make a good team, don't we? The best, Lily agreed, reaching for his hand. He pulled her to her feet, drawing her close. Thank you, he murmured, for not giving up on me, for helping me remember what this fight is really about. Lily looked up at him, seeing not the billionaire tech mogul or the notorious bad boy of Wall Street, but simply Max, the man who dared to dream of changing the world, who had let her in past his carefully constructed walls. We're just getting started, she said softly, as his arms tightened around her. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Max's office as his team gathered around the conference table, excitement crackling in the air. Lily sat beside him, her laptop open and ready to document this historic moment. On the screens around them, news channels buzzed with anticipation of the official launch. First phase rollout is complete, announced Sarah, Max's head of operations. The pilot communities are all greenlit, and initial feedback is overwhelmingly positive. Max nodded, his usually tense shoulders finally relaxed. Show me the numbers. Graphs and charts filled the screens, displaying data that exceeded even their most optimistic projections. The affordable housing units were being snapped up faster than they could process applications, and their waiting list grew by the hour. The Washington Post piece just dropped, Lily said, scanning her screen. She began reading aloud. In an era of corporate greed and housing inequality, Maxwell Richardson has emerged as an unlikely champion of the working class. His innovative approach to affordable housing isn't just disrupting the market, it's revolutionizing how we think about community development. A smile tugged at Max's lips. Quite a change from reckless billionaire, isn't it? CNN wants to do a feature on the first families moving in, another team member added. They're calling it the Richardson Revolution. Lily watched Max's reaction carefully. Just months ago, such attention would have made him bristle, but now he seemed at peace with it. The man who had hidden behind his bad boy persona had found something better: authenticity. Throughout the day, success stories poured in. A single mother in Chicago finally had a safe place to raise her children. A retired teacher in Atlanta could afford to live in the community she'd served for decades. A young couple in Seattle found hope for starting their family. Max insisted on visiting one of the new developments personally. As they walked through the modern, well-designed units, Lily noticed how he spoke with each family they encountered, not as a billionaire CEO, but as someone who genuinely cared about their lives. This is exactly what we imagined, he said quietly to Lily as they watched children playing in the community garden. Not just houses, but homes. Not just residents, but a community. Back at the office, the positive coverage continued to roll in. Financial analysts who had once criticized Max's risky approach were now praising his vision. Competing developers, seeing the success, began announcing their own affordable housing initiatives. We're trending on Twitter, Lily announced, scrolling through her phone. The hashtag #HousingForAll is exploding. People are sharing their stories, thanking you, calling for similar programs in their cities. Max moved to stand behind her chair, reading over her shoulder. His hand rested lightly on her back, a casual intimacy they'd grown comfortable with. They're thanking us, he corrected. This wouldn't have happened without you. As evening fell, the excitement of the day settled into a quiet satisfaction. The office slowly emptied, leaving Max and Lily alone with their thoughts and the glittering city skyline. They sat together on the office couch, takeout containers scattered on the coffee table between them. Lily had kicked off her heels, and Max had shed his jacket. The formality of their roles had melted away, leaving just them, two people who had found each other while trying to change the world. Remember when I called you a bad boy at that charity event? Lily asked, laughing at the memory. Max grinned. You weren't entirely wrong. I was playing a part back then, using that image as armor. And now? Now? He considered the question. Now I don't need armor. I've got something better. Purpose. And you. Lily leaned against his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Below them, the city stretched out, filled with countless stories of struggle and hope. But tonight, in this moment, they allowed themselves to simply be present, acknowledging how far they'd come and how much they'd changed each other. The screens around them still displayed the day's victories, the positive headlines, the grateful testimonials, the impressive statistics. But the real triumph wasn't in the numbers or the accolades. It was in the transformation they'd witnessed in each other. A cynical writer who'd found her cause, and a guarded billionaire who'd found his heart. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Max's office, casting a warm glow over the dozens of newspapers spread across his desk. Headlines proclaimed what they'd been working toward for months. Richardson's housing revolution, a new era begins, and tech billionaire proves critics wrong, affordable housing success story. Lily sat perched on the edge of his desk, coffee in hand, watching as Max pored over the coverage. His tie was loosened, and his sleeves were rolled up, a far cry from the perfectly polished image he'd maintained when they first met. The changes went deeper than appearance, though. The guarded tension that had once defined him had given way to something softer, more genuine. The waiting list has hit 10,000 families, one of Max's assistants announced, hurrying into the office with a tablet. And that's just in the first 3 cities. The demand is overwhelming. Max leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair. How are the current residents settling in? Exceptionally well. The community centers are already at full capacity, and the job training programs are showing promising results. We're seeing exactly what you predicted. When people have stable housing, everything else starts falling into place. Phones rang constantly throughout the morning as reporters sought comments, and investors who'd once dismissed the project now called to discuss partnerships. Max handled each call with a patience that would have surprised anyone who knew him 6 months ago. During a brief lull, Lily watched him stare out at the city skyline. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. "I'm thinking about my father," Max admitted. "He always said I was naive to think we could change the system, that the market worked the way it worked for a reason." He turned to face her, a smile playing at his lips. "I wish he could see this." "The numbers don't lie," Lily said, pulling up the latest analytics on her laptop. "Your model is proving that affordable housing can be both sustainable and profitable. 3 major developers have already announced similar initiatives." "They called me a bad boy for challenging the status quo," Max mused. "Turns out being bad for business as usual can be good for everyone else." The afternoon brought a flood of success stories from their first wave of residents. A nurse who could finally afford to live in the city where she worked. An elderly couple who no longer had to choose between medication and rent. A young family who'd escaped a cycle of unsafe housing. Max insisted on reading every testimonial, sometimes twice. Lily noticed how his eyes lingered on the photos of children playing in their new homes, of families gathering in the community spaces they'd designed. "Remember when you thought I was just another rich guy playing with people's lives?" Max asked, glancing at Lily with amusement. "Remember when you were trying so hard to maintain that tough guy image that you forgot to show people what you really cared about?" she countered. Their banter was interrupted by Max's team rushing in with more updates. The stock price was soaring. City councils across the country were reaching out to discuss expanding the program. A major university wanted to study their model as a potential solution to the national housing crisis. As evening approached, the office gradually emptied, leaving Max and Lily alone with the evidence of their success spread across every surface. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, a fitting end to a transformative day. Max stood by the window, his silhouette outlined against the twilight. "None of this would have happened without you," he said quietly. "I just helped people see what was already there," Lily replied, moving to stand beside him. "No." Max turned to face her, his expression earnest. "You saw through the facade when everyone else bought into it. You pushed me to be better, to be real. Your belief in me, in this project, it made all the difference." They stood close together, the city lights beginning to twinkle below them. The distance between them, social, emotional, professional, had melted away over the months, replaced by something deeper and more meaningful than either had expected to find. Max reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Thank you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of everything they'd been through together. Their embrace was both an ending and a beginning, a recognition of how far they'd come and what they'd accomplished together. In each other, they'd found not just support or success, but something far more precious: understanding, trust, and the courage to be exactly who they were meant to be. Lily stood at her apartment window, watching the city wake up below. Steam rose from her coffee mug, fogging the glass where she pressed it. The morning news played quietly in the background, featuring yet another story about Max's successful affordable housing initiative. She smiled, remembering that first charity event where she'd drunkenly called him out. How different things had looked then, through her cynical lens. The woman she'd been that night, defensive, judgmental, afraid to hope for real change, felt like a stranger now. Her phone buzzed with messages from aspiring writers asking for advice. Since helping reshape Max's public image, she'd become something of a consultant herself. Her byline now appeared in major publications, her voice respected in conversations about social change and corporate responsibility. "Never thought I'd be here," she murmured to herself, picking up a framed article from her desk. It was her first major piece about Max's project, written when everything seemed on the verge of collapse. The words were raw, honest, full of both hope and fear. It had gone viral, helping turn the tide of public opinion. Kate had texted her last night. "Remember when you thought dating a billionaire would mean losing yourself? Look at you now, changing the world on your own terms." Lily traced her fingers over her laptop, where her latest article sat ready for submission. This one wasn't about Max or his company. It was about grassroots housing initiatives across the country, organizations she'd discovered through her work with him, but had investigated independently. Her phone rang. Max's name lit up the screen. "Just saw your draft," he said when she answered. "It's brilliant, and you didn't pull any punches about where the industry still needs to improve." "Including suggestions for your company," she replied, smiling. "Hope that doesn't bruise your ego too much." "Please, my ego needed someone willing to tell me the truth." His voice softened. "You know, when we first met, I thought I had to maintain this image of being untouchable, the bad boy who didn't care what anyone thought." "You were pretty convinced it was working for you," Lily teased, remembering their early debates. "It was working to keep people at a distance," Max admitted, "until you called me out on it, made me realize how exhausting it was, always wearing that armor." Lily sat down at her desk, pushing aside some research papers. "We've both changed a lot since then. You've helped me understand that being vulnerable doesn't make me weak, that letting people see the real me, letting you see the real me, actually makes everything we're trying to accomplish stronger. And you've helped me see that not everyone with power is corrupt," Lily said. "That real change is possible when people are willing to fight for it." "We make a good team," Max said. "Not because we always agree, but because we challenge each other, push each other to be better." Lily thought about how their relationship had evolved, how they'd learned to balance their personal and professional lives, to support each other while maintaining their individual identities. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. "Remember that first dinner?" she asked. "When you were trying so hard to impress me with your fancy wine knowledge?" Max laughed. "And you called me out for overcompensating? That was the moment I knew you were different. You weren't interested in the facade." "I was interested in the person behind it," Lily said, "even if I didn't want to admit it at the time." "You saw me," Max said simply. "Not the billionaire, not the bad boy, just me. And instead of running away when you saw the mess behind the mask, you rolled up your sleeves and helped me fight." "That's what partners do," Lily replied. "They stand together even when things get tough." "Partners," Max repeated, the word carrying all the weight of their journey together. "I like that better than power couple, or whatever the media's calling us these days." Lily stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows in Max's penthouse office, watching the city lights twinkle below. The evening sky painted everything in soft purples and blues, a peaceful backdrop to their conversation about the future. "The foundation's ready to launch," Max said, joining her at the window. He'd shed his usual suit jacket, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, a casual look that still felt new to her. "We've got the funding secured, and the board's aligned with our vision." Lily turned to face him, leaning against the cool glass. "A nonprofit dedicated to innovative housing solutions. It's amazing how far we've come from that first project." "Thanks to you." Max reached for her hand, his touch warm and familiar. "Your perspective changed everything. Made me see that it wasn't enough to just build affordable houses. We needed to create real communities." "We make a good team," Lily said, squeezing his hand. "But I've been thinking—" Dangerous words, Max teased, but his eyes were soft with understanding. "The foundation's important, but we've been working non-stop for months." She pulled him closer, resting her head against his chest. "When was the last time we just existed, without deadlines or press conferences or board meetings?" Max wrapped his arms around her, his chin resting on her head. "You're right. Success doesn't mean much if we're too burnt out to enjoy it." "Remember that little place in Italy you mentioned? The one where your grandmother grew up?" "The village on the Amalfi Coast?" Max pulled back slightly, looking at her with surprise. "You want to go there?" "I want to go everywhere with you," Lily said. "See the world beyond boardrooms and charity galas. Meet people, hear their stories, understand how different communities approach housing and community building." Max's face lit up with understanding. "Research for the foundation?" "Eventually," Lily admitted. "But mostly, I want to experience life with you. The real you, not the CEO, or the philanthropist, or the former bad boy of Wall Street." "Just Max," he said softly. "Just Max," she agreed. "And just Lily. No laptops, no press releases, no crisis management." He walked to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. "Sarah, can you clear my schedule for the next month and get in touch with the property manager in Positano?" Lily's eyes widened. "A whole month?" "Why not?" Max grinned, the boyish smile that still made her heart skip. "The foundation's solid, the team's capable, and everything can be handled remotely if there's an emergency." "What about my writing deadlines?" "Write about our travels," he suggested. "Real stories about real people. The kind of authentic journalism you've always wanted to do." Lily felt excitement bubble up inside her. "We could visit some of the community housing projects in Europe, see different approaches, meet the people making change happen on the ground." "Mix business with pleasure?" Max raised an eyebrow. "Life with purpose," Lily corrected. "Isn't that what we've both been fighting for? The chance to make a difference while still living fully?" Max pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. When do you want to leave? How about next week? Lily suggested. Give us time to wrap up the most pressing matters. Brief our teams. I'll have the jet ready, Max said, then laughed at her expression. Or we could fly commercial if you prefer. Although I warn you, I'm terrible at waiting in lines. Poor billionaire, Lily teased, having to mix with the common folk. Hey, I learned my lesson about ivory towers, Max said. The best ideas come from being in the real world, talking to real people. You taught me that. They stood together, watching the city darken into night, both feeling the rightness of their decision. They'd earned this break, this chance to step back and remember who they were beyond their work and public personas. Italy first, Lily murmured. Then wherever the wind takes us? Wherever you want to go, Max agreed, as long as we're together. The late afternoon sun painted Max's penthouse in warm honey tones as Lily packed the last of her travel essentials. She smiled at the small collection of belongings spread across their bed. After months of intense work and public scrutiny, the simple act of packing for their trip felt wonderfully normal. I still can't believe we're doing this, she said, folding a casual sweater. No power suits or cocktail dresses needed for this adventure. Max emerged from his closet, holding a worn leather journal. Found it. My grandmother's old travel diary from when she left Italy. He sat on the edge of the bed, carefully opening the delicate pages. She wrote about everything. The village, the people, the daily rhythms of life there. Lily settled beside him, leaning against his shoulder to look at the elegant handwriting. Tell me about her. She was fierce, Max said, his voice soft with memory. Came to America with nothing but determination and a handful of recipes. Built a life from scratch. He traced the edge of a page. I used to think success meant proving something to the world. But she taught me it's about building something meaningful, something that lasts. Sounds like someone I know, Lily teased, nudging him gently. I lost sight of that for a while, Max admitted. Got caught up in the game, the image, the constant battle to prove myself. He turned to face her. You brought me back to what matters. We brought each other back, Lily corrected. She stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. I was so focused on surviving, on making ends meet, that I forgot to dream bigger, to believe in possibility. Max joined her, his reflection overlapping hers in the glass. And now? Now I know that change is possible, she said, not just through grand gestures and billion-dollar projects, but through understanding, connection, one person at a time. Is that why you suggested this trip? Max wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. Partly, Lily admitted. I want to see the world through new eyes, meet people, hear their stories, understand how different communities support each other. She turned in his embrace. But mostly, I want to know you, all of you, away from the pressure and expectations. I want that too, Max said, to just be us, figuring out our next chapter together. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city buzz below. The past year had transformed them both. Max from a guarded billionaire to someone who dared to be vulnerable, Lily from a skeptical observer to an active participant in creating change. Sarah finished arranging everything, Max said. The village house is ready, and she's lined up some interesting community projects we can visit if we want to. But no schedule? Lily confirmed. No schedule, Max promised. Just us, exploring, learning, being together. He paused. Though I did make one small arrangement. Lily raised an eyebrow. Oh? There's a little restaurant in the village, family-owned for generations. The grandmother there taught my grandmother to make her famous tiramisu. His eyes sparkled. I may have asked them to teach us the recipe? Us? Lily laughed. Mr. I have 3 personal chefs is going to cook? Hey, I'm full of surprises. Max pulled her closer. Besides, some traditions are worth preserving. Looking at him now, Lily saw all the layers that made up the man she loved. The determined visionary, the secret softy, the person who wanted to make the world better, not just through grand gestures, but through small, meaningful actions. "What are you thinking about?" Max asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "How far we've come," Lily said. "From that first night when I called you a bad boy to now, planning a future together, ready to explore the world." "Best insult I ever received," Max grinned. "Changed my whole life." They turned back to their packing, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of two people who had found their rhythm. The setting sun cast long shadows across the room, but neither of them felt the usual end-of-day pressure to check emails or review reports. Instead, there was only the peaceful anticipation of the journey ahead, not just to Italy, but into their shared future.